A soft breeze rustled the cherry blossoms in Lafayette Park, right across from the White House. It was a bright spring day, and the area was alive with activity. Tourists milled around, chatting excitedly, chasing their children, and enjoying ice cream under the warm sun. Yet, at the far edge of the park, sat a man almost invisible to the world. His posture was upright, his gaze distant, and his hands rested in his lap, folded with the discipline of a soldier awaiting orders. His name was Hank Whitaker. He was 77 years old, a Vietnam War veteran, and someone quietly lost in the cracks of society. Hank came to the same bench at the same time every day. He never asked for help, never spoke out loud about his past. He didn't beg or complain. He just sat, still, observant, and deep in remembrance. The only indication of his past was a weathered Marine Corps cap that hinted at the life he had once lived and the battles he had once fought. On this particular morning, a young White House staffer named Ava Ramirez spotted him again. She had been noticing Hank for weeks, each time sensing something unspoken in his stillness. That day, something nudged her to finally approach. "Mind if I sit?" she asked gently. Hank looked up slowly, studying her with calm, steady eyes. "It's a free country," he replied with a faint nod. They sat quietly at first. Then, Ava broke the silence. "You're a veteran?" she asked. Hank gave a dry smirk. "Guess the hat gave me away." Ava nodded toward the White House. "I work in there," she said. "I think the president would want to meet you." Hank's expression didn't change. "He's got more important things to do," he replied. But something in Ava told her otherwise. There was a gravity in Hank's presence, something sacred that deserved to be acknowledged. She made a quiet decision. Even if Hank wasn't asking, someone needed to listen to his story. That evening, Ava returned to her office, but couldn't shake the image of Hank from her mind. The composed posture, the thoughtful silence. He reminded her of her grandfather, also a veteran, who had passed away before she had a chance to hear all his stories. Maybe, she thought, Hank was a second chance. That night, she dug into military archives, searching old records until she found a name that made her stop. Henry Hank Whitaker, Silver Star recipient, 2 tours in Vietnam, honorably discharged. She opened the file. It read like a war film. Leading his unit out of an ambush, saving 5 wounded men, staying behind with the last soldier for 2 days under enemy fire until rescue came. No fanfare, no ceremony, just a note in a dusty file and a folded flag. The next morning, Ava printed the file and returned to the park. Hank was there again, same bench, cap pulled low. "I read your record," she said softly, standing in front of him. He didn't look up. "Doesn't mean much now," he muttered. "You saved lives," she countered. "That has to count for something." Hank nodded slowly. "It did, back then." She handed him the file. "You never told anyone?" He took the papers, eyes scanning the words slowly. "War teaches you 2 things," he said after a moment. "How to survive, and how to live with silence." Ava sat beside him. "I don't think it's fair that your silence buried the truth." Hank gave her a faint smile. "You're different. You listen." She met his gaze. "And the president will too. Just give him a chance." Hank didn't reply, but he didn't walk away either. That was enough to give Ava hope that the story might finally begin. The next day, Hank didn't appear at the park. Ava felt a pang of guilt. Maybe she'd pushed him too hard. Maybe he wanted to remain forgotten. But on the 4th day, he returned. She approached with a gentle smile. "I spoke with someone in the West Wing. If you're open to it, President Trump would like to meet with you, just the 2 of you." Hank raised an eyebrow. "The president?" Ava nodded. "Yes, He's met many veterans, but not someone like you. Your story matters. Hank let out a long breath. Not a fan of politics. It's not about politics, Ava said softly. It's about being seen. After a moment of thought, Hank replied, All right, but I'm not going for a handout. Ava smiled. I know that. 2 days later, Hank stood outside the White House gates, his shoes polished, his Marine cap dusted off. Ava greeted him at the entrance. As they walked through the halls, Hank looked around at the portraits, the marble, the flags. Doesn't feel real, he murmured. You deserve to be here, Ava replied. Inside the Oval Office, President Trump stood and extended a hand. Mr. Whitaker, I've heard a lot about you. Hank offered a firm handshake. Just Hank, sir? Trump smiled. Well, Hank, this country owes you more than words. They sat together, and Hank shared his story, calm, candid, and without embellishment. Trump listened intently. We can honor you, he said after a moment. A medal ceremony, financial support, whatever you need. Hank leaned back. I didn't come here for money or medals. Trump looked surprised. Then what do you want? Hank reached into his coat and pulled out an old, creased envelope. This is from my best friend Charlie. He died in Vietnam. I promised to deliver his words to someone who could make a difference. You're the first to ask. Trump took the envelope, carefully unfolding the aged letter. The handwriting was shaky but clear. If I don't make it, tell someone we fought not just for freedom, but for those who couldn't fight. Promise. Me, we won't be forgotten. Hank's voice wavered. We didn't fight for parades. We fought for meaning. Trump looked up, eyes misted. I'll read every word. That night, President Trump sat alone, the letter in hand. The words sank deep. The next morning, he called Ava. Can Hank come back? I want to talk more. When Hank returned, Trump handed back the letter. You were right. This is more valuable than any donation. It's a reminder. Hank nodded. Charlie didn't want fame. He wanted change. Then let's make it happen, Trump said. And so, an unlikely alliance began. A quiet veteran and a powerful president, united by a common purpose. A week later, Trump stood in the Rose Garden and made an announcement. Today, I met a man who reminded me that our veterans need more than medals. They need to be heard. He introduced the Whitaker Project, a national storytelling archive for veterans, paired with medical, housing, and employment services. When reporters asked what inspired the sudden shift, Trump said simply, One man showed me that real patriotism isn't loud. Sometimes it's quiet and unforgettable. At home, Hank watched the announcement on TV. Silent, humbled. Charlie's words had finally found their voice. Of course, not everyone was pleased. Critics accused Trump of using Hank for political points. The media debated whether it was genuine or PR. Hank refused interviews. But one day, he wrote a brief op-ed in the Washington Post. I didn't ask for fame. I asked for action. And for the first time in decades, someone listened. The op-ed quieted the skeptics. Trump read it and said, he doesn't speak much, but when he does, it moves mountains. At a Whitaker Project town hall, a woman named Mabel stood up. Her husband, a Korean War veteran, had died waiting for VA care. I don't want money, she said. I just want someone to remember his name. Hank was in the audience. He walked up to her quietly. I'll remember him, and I'll make sure others do too. Mabel wept, not from sadness, but from being seen. It became clear that Hank had started more than a project. He'd sparked a national movement. Veterans began sending letters, journals, and voice recordings. Students, artists, and even former critics volunteered. The archive grew into thousands of stories. At another press conference, Trump said, Hank asked for no donation. just dignity. This country has a debt no check can pay. But stories, they live forever. Watching from afar, Hank simply nodded. Ava's role expanded. She became national director of the Whitaker Project. But her mission remained rooted in truth and service. She often visited Hank, seeking his advice. He never gave orders, just wisdom. "You can build buildings," he once said, "but people remember how you made them feel." She had those words inscribed on the first plaque outside the National Archive, in honor of those who served and those who listened. One day, Hank visited a high school in Maryland. He stood before a room full of teens who had never met a veteran. "I'm not here to scare you with war stories," he said. "I'm here to remind you, freedom isn't free, and neither is silence." A student raised her hand. "What do you wish people understood most?" Hank paused.